Hey guys, it's Bobi, aka Paginator, and we're here today with the TBR game for March. So we are filming this a little bit earlier than usual, but that it would take me too long to explain why, so you're just gonna have to go with me on this one. You know that if you've watched my March Through Your TBR readathon announcement that I am hosting a readathon during the month of March, but it's very like loosey-goosey, make the prompts fit where you can, very chill, easy going. So I am still going to play TBR Avatar. I love playing the game, and it's a game. Like, yeah, I just want to do it. So we're going to dive right into the roles, and here we go. All right, let's get started with role number 1. 6. I never remember which way I'm supposed to go. Up, down, up, down. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Team Avatar, which means a friend or family pick. And I'm probably going to go with the second book that my students recommended for me, but we'll see. Okay, so role number 1 got us Team Avatar, a friend or family member pick, and I'm going to go with the second book that my students picked for me to read, which is The Darkening. Sunyamara is the author, and this was a Fairy Loot edition. Let's read the dust jacket to remind ourselves. Prince Delka was born for one purpose, to protect his home from the storm, a deadly force that surrounds his city and curses everyone it touches. Vesper Vale is the daughter of failed revolutionaries. Since the queen sentenced her mother to death by the storm, she and her father have been on the run. So when queen's soldiers, led by Prince Delka, catch up to Vesper's father, she will do whatever it takes to save him from sharing her mother's cruel fate. Even arm herself with her father's book of dangerous experimental magic. Even infiltrate the prince's elite squad of soldier sorcerers. Even cheat her way into his cold heart. But when Vesper learns that there's more to the story of her mother's death and that her home is in dire peril, she has little choice: trust the devious prince with her family secrets or follow her mother's footsteps into the storm. Yikes. That will also count for my March Through Your TBR prompt of a friend or family member recommendation. Role number 2. 1, 2. So element triangles. So usually what I do for element triangles is a random number generator. And 1 will be air, 2 will be fire, 3 will be water, and 4 will be earth. So let's hit it 1, 2, 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And it brings us to 1, which is air. And that means a sci-fi. Role number 2 got us the element triangles, and we rolled air, so we need to pick a sci-fi. And I also wanted to pick a long sci-fi because I have a March Through Your TBR prompt of a book over 500 pages. So we're going to go with Between Burning Worlds by Jessica Brody and Joanne Rendell. This is a sequel to, what was the name of the first one? The series is called The System Divine. The first book was called Sky Without Stars. It was phenomenal, amazing world building. It was kind of, oh gosh, how do I explain this? It's like a mixture of fantasy and sci-fi, like, but also Les Mis set in space. I know, weird. But, yeah, and also because this one specifically is a sequel, can I really tell you much about it? Do I have the first one in here, or is it at school? So the first one's at school, so I can't hold it up for you or read that dust jacket. I could look it up on Goodreads or something else, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be lazy, and I'm just going to tell you that our characters, Marcellus, Chatine, and Alouette, are inspired by Marius, Eponine, and what's Jean Valjean's daughter's name? Cosette. Yes. And so take those people, put them into space with space battles and underground prisons. Am I thinking of the right book? I think that's the one that has the underground prison. Anyway, underground something. Maybe underground library? Something's underground. Can you tell it's been a while since I read the first one? Ugh. And, yeah, I know I've been slightly out of focus. We're doing this camera today. Anyway, yeah, I'm just going to be reading this sequel, and it's a chunky monkey. Roll number 3. 2 again. 1, 2. Skull and Crossbones. I don't know if I've ever gotten this, landed on this spot before. I'm going to have to check G's rules here. Oh no! I have to go back to the beginning. Meh. That means longer to get to the avatar state. Okay, so the beginning is a plain circle, so that means we draw a card. Leaves on the Vine. Read a book you think will be sad or a book that has leaves on the cover. So roll number 3 got us this book here, Two Roads by Joseph Bruchac. The prompt was Leaves on the Vine, a book you think will be sad or has leaves on the cover. There are trees on this cover, so that technically has leaves, and I think that it could be sad. It is set in 1932, so it covers the historical fiction prompt for March Through Your TBR, and it also is about a 12-year-old boy named Cal Black, and he is unfortunately sent to an Indian school. It's called Chalagi Indian School, which is a government boarding school for Native Americans in Oklahoma. I remember when I was growing up, there's about an hour away from where I lived, we just called it the Indian school because there was, like, that's what everyone called it, and it was already closed down by the time I was born, but I never really knew what those were until I became older and studied, history and stuff, and oh man, another sad thing that happened in history to people who didn't deserve it. So that's why I think it might be sad, because these boarding schools were notoriously not good to the kids. And they kind of took away their Native American identity, cut their hair, like made them change their names, all this stuff. So yeah, that's why I think there will be some sad parts. Roll number 4. 3. 1, 2, 3. So Momo is a pet pick, and I don't have a pet. So G's rules say that you can kind of do your own thing if you don't have a pet. And I'm going to write down random color picker because that's one of my March Through Your TBR prompts, and I want to use it at some point. So in roll number 4, we got Momo, a pet pick, but then I changed it to a color wheel generator because I don't have a pet. So I will insert a little screen recording here of the color wheel. Let's go do that. Okay, so we got purple. I have a purple book, and it is, hang on, let me grab it from the shelf. Okay, so this book is very purple. It is Fresh by Margot Wood. It is purple all over the place, and the blurb is actually on the back because it's just hardcover without a dust jacket. Oh, camera, what are you doing? Okay, usually it helps if I sit like this. Okay, so I'm supposed to read this part in a movie trailer narrator voice. In a world where humanity has crumbled. Wait, no, wrong story. Sorry, let's try that again. YA movie trailer narrator voice. So I think this is supposed to be more peppy stuff. Some students enter their freshman year of college knowing exactly what they want to do with their lives. Elliot McHugh isn't one of those people, but picking a major is the last thing on Elliot's mind when she's too busy experiencing all that college has to offer. From dancing all night at off-campus parties to testing her RA Rose's patience to making new friends and having the best adult times one can have on a twin-sized dorm room bed. But she may not be ready for the fallout when reality hits. When the adult times she's having isn't that great. When finals creep up and smack her right in the face, or when her roommate's boyfriend turns out to be the biggest a-hole. Elliot may make epic mistakes, but if she's honest with herself and with you, dear reader, she may just find the person she wants to be and maybe even fall in love in the process. Well, maybe. We're not promising anything. Now, I do sometimes struggle with books that have a lot of adult times in them, but sometimes I don't. For example, the Outlander series, I have no problem reading those. I haven't watched the show yet, because for some reason, like, seeing it visually acted out is, like, that's super triggering for me. But usually reading a book I do okay. If I have any issues though with this one, I can always DNF it. I'm not going to force myself into a mental health negative space because of one book, right? Rule number 5. 3. 1, 2, 3. Pick a card. Oh, oops. No, not upside down. U. Book with the word moon in the title or moon on the cover. Rule number 5 got us U, a moon in the title or on the cover. And so we're going to go with Outrun the Moon by Stacey Lee. This already has my classroom library labels on it. Because it's Stacey Lee, I can usually trust her. But then I brought it home because I wanted to read it, and it's been sitting on the shelf for quite a while. Oh, I forgot to mention the previous book, Fresh, is going to cover the March Through Your TBR prompt of a book you've had for over a year, because that one's been here for a while. This one isn't covering any particular prompt unless I also use it for a double dose of a book you've had for over a year, because I've definitely had this for a long time. Let's find out more about it. San Francisco, 1906. 15-year-old Mercy Wong is determined to break from the poverty of Chinatown, and an education at St. Clair's School for Girls is her best hope. Although St. Clair's is off limits to all but the wealthiest white girls, Mercy gains admittance through a mix of cunning and a little bribery, only to discover that getting in was the easiest part. Not to be undone by a bunch of spoiled heiresses, Mercy stands strong until disaster strikes. On April 18th, a historic earthquake rocks San Francisco, destroying Mercy's home and school. Now she's forced to wait with her classmates for their families in a temporary park encampment. Though fires might rage and the city may be in shambles, Mercy can't sit by while they wait for the army to bring help. She still has the bossy cheeks that mark her as someone who gets things done, but what can one teenage girl do to heal so many suffering in her broken city? I'm not sure what bossy cheeks means. I guess we'll find out when we read the book. Roll number 6. 2. 1, 2. Another card. Pick. It's going to take us the whole game to get out of this quadrant of the board. Pie Show. Pick 3 books and put them on a poll. Okay, so Pie Show. 3 books, put 3 books on a poll. For rule number 6. Now, if you don't know, I film the rolls ahead of time, and then I go through and pick the books and splice it all together. So after I got this card to pick 3 books and put them on a poll, I immediately set up a poll with 3 books, and I put it in one of my Facebook groups that's about books, and then I went to church. And I came back and 0 responses to the poll. So this is what we're going to do. To still kind of leave it up to fate, I'm going to insert a screen recording. We're going to do a random number generator out of 3. So if we get 1, then the book will be Georgie All Along. If we get 2, it will be Right Where I Left You. And then if we get 3, it will be The Writing Retreat. Okay, so let's see what happens. Here we go with the random number generator. Okay, so we got number 2, which means we're going to be reading Right Where I Left You. This is by Julian Winters. And this was a recent purchase for me. Oh, that means that it could actually cover 2 prompts, because it could cover a social media recommendation and a recent acquisition for the March Through Your TBR. Anyway, this one is an LGBT plus title. It says, newly graduated comic book obsessed Isaac Martin is geared up for an epic summer. Teen Pride is right around the corner, and if all goes according to plan, he'll meet his comic writing heroes at this year's Legends Con. Most importantly, the next few months are about spending every waking moment with his best friend Diego before heading to college without him in the fall. If he should also find his storybook love, well, that's just an added bonus. Enter Davi, an old high school crush whose charming smile and carefree personality leave Isaac practically starry-eyed in the meet-cute of the century. Unfortunately, distraction also causes Isaac to miss out on convention badges. Now Isaac has to break the news to Diego, but with their time growing shorter, Isaac can't figure out why Diego seems more annoyed about Davi being around than missing the convention. I remember when I hauled this and I was reading this, I was like, yeah, you know why. Yeah. Anyway, how could Diego begrudge Isaac for wanting the kind of romance he's only seen in movies? The kind that queer characters never get in his favorite comic books. But as Isaac will soon realize, when it comes to love, sometimes the reality turns out better than the fairy tale. I am so in the mood for a good romantic story. In fact, I started reading one on NetGalley this morning. So this is how terrible of a person I am. I got to church a little bit early, and I was like, crap. Being at church makes me super anxious, just letting you know that. I love the people there. It's just, there's a lot of reasons. Okay. So I opened up my NetGalley app and picked, a book to start reading just before the meeting started. And, so what I picked was Donick Walsh and the Reset Button. It is by Nathaniel Shea, and I read 14 pages before church started. And it seems like I'm going to really love it. It's about Donick Walsh, who is the high school quarterback, but he has a devastating injury which completely takes him out of football for basically the rest of his life. Because if he plays again and hurts his shoulder again, he's not going to be able to use his arm for good. And he's been taking dance classes for years to help improve his athletic ability. So he decides that he's going to put a reset on his life by auditioning for the senior spring showcase musical kind of thing. His former best friend and also his first kiss, Michael, is going to be there because he is a theater kid. And Donick, in the years past, has become a bully, and he will tell you straight up front that he's an a-hole. That's how the book begins. So he wants to kind of reset that part of himself as well and become someone new. And like I said, I only read 14 pages of it so far, but I really enjoy it. So I want to actually stop filming and go read, but I need to finish filming because, yeah. Rule number 7. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's an arrow, so we move over here and we draw another card. Mayuki, book with an animal that is kept as a pet on the cover. Okay, so number 7 got us Mayuki, an animal that's kept as a pet on the cover. And I wanted to pick a middle grade for this one, so I grabbed Starfell, Willow Moss, and The Lost Day. This is the first book in a middle grade series by Dominique Valente, and this little girl is carrying a cat in her purse. Cat is a pet that people keep, so I figured that would count. This one says, it was an ordinary Friday in the land of Starfell when Willow Moss, a most ordinary witch, received the most extraordinary of visitors. Willow's magic has always seemed unremarkable, but when the most feared witch in the whole of Starfell appears on the Moss's family doorstep looking for help, it's not Willow's talented sister she seeks, it's Willow, because Willow is a finder of lost things. And Morag Vane says that last Tuesday has gone missing. Willow and Morag set out on a perilous journey across the wilds of Starfell, looking for what they've lost. If they don't discover what happened to the missing day, the repercussions, could be devastating for the entire kingdom. Can Willow find the day to save the day? This will also count for the fantasy or horror prompt, obviously being on the fantasy side, for March through your TBR. Roll number 8. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and another card. Lots of cards this time. Cabbage Merchant, book that keeps being dropped off your TBR. That actually kind of fits perfectly with my readathon. Rule number 8 got us Cabbage Merchant, a book that keeps getting dropped off your TBR. Now, this is one that is also going to cover the second chances prompt for March through your TBR. It is one that I've tried to read and then got distracted with other things, and I wanted to come back to and give it another shot a couple of different times, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it this time. It is The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. I actually have 2 copies of this book. I have this gorgeous edition with the sprayed edges, and then, let me grab the other one. Let's see. I have this one, which is the regular hardback. I think both of these came in book boxes, which is why I have two. I think that's why I have two. So to tell you a bit about the book, it says 16-year-old Decca lives in fear and anticipation of the blood ceremony that will determine whether she becomes a member of her village. Already different from everyone else because of her unnatural intuition, Decca prays for red blood so she can finally feel like she belongs. But on the day of the ceremony, her blood runs gold, the color of impurity, and Decca knows she will face a consequence worse than death. Then a mysterious woman comes to her with a choice: stay in the village and submit to her fate, or leave to fight for the emperor in an army of girls just like her. They are called Alakai, near immortals with rare gifts, and they are the only ones who can stop the empire's greatest threat. Knowing the dangers that lie ahead, yet yearning for acceptance, Decca decides to leave the only life she's ever known. But as she journeys to the capital to train for the biggest battle of her life, she discovers that the great walled city holds many surprises. Nothing and no one are quite what they seem to be, not even Decca herself. Now, I still have visual pictures in my mind of some of the scenes from the part of the book that I read, but I'm definitely going to be starting back at the beginning to just fully immerse myself in the world and follow Decca on this journey. Roll number 9. 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Another card. We narrowly avoided the skull again. That would be sad. Gyatso. Pick any book you're in the mood for. Awesome. Roll number 9 got us Gyatso. Any book you're in the mood for, which is fantastic because I also have a mood read prompt on March through your TBR. And lately I have been really, really wanting to read Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. I also have found on YouTube a video series with Tom Hiddleston narrating this book. Yes, Tom Hiddleston, Loki, narrating this book. I love Tom Hiddleston. I am super excited about this, but let's read what the book is about. It says, Neil Gaiman, long inspired by ancient mythology and creating the fantastical realms of his fiction, presents a bravura rendition of the Norse gods and their world from their origin through their upheaval in Ragnarok. In Norse mythology, Gaiman stays true to the myths in envisioning the major Norse pantheon: Odin, the highest of the high, wise, daring, and cunning; Thor, Odin's son, incredibly strong yet not the wisest of gods; and Loki, son of a giant, blood brother to Odin, and a trickster and unsurpassable manipulator. So I'm going to be listening to Loki narrate about Loki. Mind-bending. Gaiman fashions these primeval stories into a novelistic arc that begins with the genesis of the legendary 9 worlds and delves into the exploits of deities, dwarves, and giants. Through Gaiman's deft and witty prose, these gods emerge with their fiercely competitive natures, their susceptibility to being duped and to duping others, and their tendency to let passion ignite their actions, making these long-ago myths breathe pungent life again. And lesson final roll number 10. 2. 1, 2. Cabbage pot. We knew it was going to happen at some point in this game, right? Alright, roll number 10 got us the cabbage pot, which for me is not really a cabbage pot, it's a hat, a top hat. And I have a prompt on March through the TBR called Draw from a Hat. Okay, so here is my hat / cabbage pot. As always, if I draw one that I've already read since making this, I will redraw. This one says, The Miraculous by Jess Redmond. Good news, it's short. Well, short-ish. I mean, it's middle grade. So, this tells us 11-year-old Wonder Ellis is a miracologist. In a journal he calls The Miraculous, he records stories of the inexplicable and extraordinary, and he believes every single one. But then his newborn sister dies at only 8 days old. Oh. If that can happen, then miracles can't exist. So Wonder gets rid of the miraculous. He stops believing. Then he meets Faye, a cape-wearing, outspoken girl with losses of her own. Together they find an abandoned house by the cemetery and a mysterious old woman who just might be a witch. The old woman asks for their help. She asks them to believe, and they go on a journey that leads to friendship, to adventure, to healing, and to miracles. This should be good. I've read other books by Jess Redmond before and enjoyed her writing. This is her debut book, which came out quite a while ago. And we'll see if we can find out when. In 2019. So I guess not terribly long ago, but still long enough ago. Yeah. Okay, so this gives me quite a large TBR for March, but I mean, I always have large ones. I always do 10 books, so that's okay. And we're gonna wrap this sucker up before my camera dies. So have a wonderful, magical, and bookish day. Happy reading. Adios.